Hello and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. Today we are finishing off the chat to talk about the reality about building muscle, how long it actually takes, and if it is possible to get rapid results, and if it is, what does that include? What does that entail? And why do people feel like they're looking worse when they're actually in the process of looking better? I call it the shit before the fit. Here we go. Gaining fat, or I'm training my legs, but my legs gain muscle really fast. I don't want to train them that much. And the argument that we're gonna now move into is how you can't actually build muscle as fast as you think you can, and the reality of how slow muscle grows, especially for women.
Yeah. So you brought up a very good point before we got on about this, because it's gonna help me like lay out a concept again, something that a lot of people argue about in the industry. It's like you could realistically, and we've thought about this for many decades, have two different types of what we consider muscle growth, or it's probably more prevalent, say, muscle size. So you have what's called sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, which is basically your higher rep pump up work. You're creating a lot of energy breakdown and recycling, and that causes, anytime you do that, you're causing a bit of inflammation. Anytime you contract a muscle, you're releasing inflammatory chemicals and myokines. Anytime you have more inflammation, you're going to draw water to that. So part of like bodybuilding pump up work, a big part of that muscle size is going to be just fluid retention in the muscles. So it's like you pump your arms up and you stay a little bit swollen for 3 or 4 days. You start to deflate. You do another arm workout. You pump it up. So a lot of that size gain you get from that is just temporary cellular swelling and a small amount of muscle growth, of myofibrillar growth, where the muscle fibers are actually starting to get thick. If you go on the opposite end and you look at people lifting really heavy ass weights, you have less of the inflammatory pump up, but you have a lot more of the actual muscle fiber thickening. So you being a power lifter, former competitive power lifter, you understand this, right? You've done physique, but you've also done powerlifting. So it's like when you're doing physique work, you can put on weight really fast, but you have to maintain it. Like the minute if you don't work out for a week, you kind of deflate. So it's like you have to try to do your bodybuilding work every 3 or 4 days. If you do powerlifting, you'll notice you're getting really strong. You don't seem to be building a lot of muscle quickly, but it's more dense muscle. The muscle looks harder because it's actual muscle fiber thickening, whereas the sarcoplasmic pump up stuff is mainly intracellular swelling. They both produce increases in muscular size. The heavy lifting produces more muscular size. It's just really slow. The pump up work makes you look artificially bigger, faster, but the actual muscle growth is very slow. So in both of those situations, muscle growth is very slow. Just one gives you the temporary appearance of being bigger than you are, as long as you maintain the pump up, right? So
it's just something you said before that I want to repeat because I love it. Before we clicked record, Luke was just like, yeah, the women that think they're special snowflakes, that think they just gain muscle so fast. But the thing is, no matter who you are, muscle growth does not happen that fast on a yearly basis, year after year after year. And on the note of the different muscle growths, that's probably why I have the lines you see in my legs as well, because a lot of the work I've done has been the power work, which has developed that density in the muscle, not the ballooning.
And when you do the heavy work, the way I teach muscle fibers and motor units, you have type 1A or type 1, which is going to be more of your endurance-y. They're very resistant to fatigue. When you go out for a long run, it's mainly going to be type 1. They have some muscle growth potential. They grow really well with that, a lot of pump up work. Then you have the type 2X, which is on the other side. Type 2X, or sometimes people call it type 2B. Those are your, really heavy shit lifts or really fast lifts. So they're kind of like your fight or flight muscles. So when you get under a heavy load of, say, like 90%, you crank out a set of 3 in the squats, Your brain doesn't understand what you're doing. All it knows is, holy shit, this is heavy. This could hurt me. I'm going to jack up my sympathetic nervous system. So what that ends up doing is when you do a lot of the heavy work, it creates a level of tone in your muscles that you can't get from the pump up work, because it's more of a nervous system phenomenon of keeping your muscles kind of at the ready, kind of like a national guard, like an army reserve. They're there, they're training in case something happens, but they may not have to go over to Iraq or whatever. So your muscles kind of keep that kind of state of ready all the time. When you do a lot of bodybuilding pump up work, you look swollen, but there's just a difference in that muscle hardness because it's less stimulatory towards your nervous system. Now, the best thing, just be a power builder and do what we used to do in the 80s and 90s, and start your workout with 20 or 30 minutes of heavy shit and then end on some pump up shit. Then you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and the whole argument though of muscle isn't actually that easy to build, and fat loss is a much faster process. So maybe you can clarify just why fat loss in general is fast, quote unquote, because you're comparing it to the rate of muscle growth, which doesn't weight on the scale and looking full doesn't equate to muscles growing.
So if you think about this, because you get that, you'll get a handful of women that they train legs, and what ends up happening is their legs are swollen. Maybe you've done some drop sets, maybe you've done higher reps, maybe you've done some tri-sets, giant sets, whatever for the legs. They're gonna have that temporary swelling. So they take a shower, they go home, they put their jeans on, their jeans don't fit. So they go, oh my God, my legs are getting too big. Your legs are only big temporarily from that because you just worked out. So you may have, if you don't train your legs for say another 5 or 6 days, you put your pants on, your pants fit. So if women have that issue where they feel like their legs are swelling, that you just may think about the amount of volume and the amount of inflammation that you're building in your legs in that workout, and just make some adjustments on it. But it's definitely not muscle. It's not muscle. So if someone actually truly built muscle like that, they would know. They probably wouldn't be going to a trainer anyways, unless they were doing a bodybuilding show or powerlifting meet, because they would already be jacked as fuck. Because people like that are just jacked naturally. I hardly work out right now, and I'm sitting at 12% at 95 kilos, and I haven't worked out. Maybe a couple, maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, right? If I go and I hit the weights, and keep in mind, I'm hypogonadal. I'm supposed to be on TRT, but I can't get it here. So I haven't really been on consistent TRT in 6 years. And I'm just naturally a big guy. I've always been huge. I was 105 kilos in high school when I left high school. And I got up to, before I ever did any performance enhancing drugs, I got up to about 110, 112 kilos naturally. And then I used gear to get up to 123, 124 for powerlifting. So, there are some people who are outliers and they don't fit in a normal thing. But most people that are coming to a trainer unless you specialize in high level bodybuilding, powerlifting, or whatever, most people are not going to be hyper responders to exercise. So if your legs feel like they're getting thick, and it's really fast, it's not going to be muscle. I can almost guarantee you.
I also want you to take a little role with the whole fact that you can't force feed muscle growth.
Yeah, and look, it's like your body has a finite speed at which it can do things. So, if you look at the way to build muscle long term is keep your protein at a high enough point, and match your calories to your TDEE. If you have a little bit of flub you need to lose, eat in a slight deficit. You could eat a slight deficit. You're still going to put on muscle. Just don't crank a hard deficit. And when you lose that, when you tidy up a little bit, now you can crank the calories back up a little bit. Don't go too high. Your body can only make enough digestive juices. It can only make enough transport proteins. They can only do so much. So if you want to just get really big, go ahead and eat your 7,000-8,000 calories. but you're going to be big and fat, and you're not going to like the way you look. You're going to look like a fucking melted candle. So, and you're constantly going to be having to diet that off. Just accept that, work out your TDEE and eat at maintenance and see how you respond to it. Maybe you see that you're starting to lose a little belly fat. All right, cool. Like, that's great. Or your arm circumference is going up, or your leg circumference is going up, your chest circumference is growing up, but yet you look like you're getting leaner. Happy days. If all of those are going up, but you look like you're getting too thick in the stomach, well, maybe you just exceeded your ability to utilize that energy, and that excess energy is going to be put in the fat cells, where it's going to be completely fucking useless for making muscle. So
you don't need that big of a surplus.
No, you don't. I mean, they've shown it in the literature. They've shown you don't even need a surplus to put on muscle. If you have stored energy on your body, you like I said, you don't want to go into like a 40% deficit. But if you were doing like a 10% deficit and you kept your protein high and you just went going, you'd make a really nice recomp over time. And then, if you thought you could squeeze more out of it, add 5%, and the minute you see you're starting to get sloppy, take 5% out and tidy yourself up a little bit. But these people they go wild swings of massive bulking and crazy dieting. It's insanity. Like, you can't force your body to move faster than what it's designed to do unless you're willing to take illicit drugs.
And what he's trying to say is that if you are over fat, which is stored energy, because otherwise you're better served in maintenance on the upper end with maybe like a slight surplus of 100 calories to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us want to see some physical change, and you're not going to see physical change if you're dawdling at the bottom end of maintenance. And the leaner you get, aka just like us as average people, and you don't have a lot of stored body fat, stop trying to do both at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I think, that's the thing. Like, I firmly believe if you take a long-term approach, you can do both at the same time.
And if you're 100% effort every single day without a family,
yeah. But I think what you really have to do is reevaluate like your time domain, right? So if you want to put on size really fast, the only way you're going to do that is by doing hypertrophy stuff and eating lots of food. If you want to drop fat really fast, you got to go the opposite way. But what I'd love to see people do is go into a position where they have, a good body fat percentage. Like, you get girls in like around like that 24 mark, like 22 to 24 mark, which 22 is a lot leaner than people think. You get girls around like 23, 24, 25, 26 mark, and try to stay at that body fat percentage. So if you see that you're creeping up higher than that, start to reduce the calories. And if your protein's high, you're still building muscle, but you're going to pull off some of that body fat. So your weight's not going to change drastically, like if you went to the extremes. But if you think about, okay, I'm planning on looking like this in a couple of years, it's a much better route. And for the guys, if you could keep your body fat percentage, somewhere between maybe like 13, 14, and 17, that would be a good there. You still have linea albus showing, you got a little bit of fat on the fupa, but you can still see a little bit of the upper abs. Once you get to the point where you can't see that, we'll start chipping the calories down a little bit, or do a little bit of extra conditioning to burn off some stuff. You clean that down to 13, 14%. You'll look better most of the time. You can still build muscle. And it's to me, a healthier way of doing it. But you just have to have the patience to kind of flog it out and do it over a long-term period of time. But every person I've done a long-term transformation like that with, they look far, far better. They feel better, and they're healthier than the people I see that are swinging back and forth between bulking and cutting seasons.
Yeah, I'm going to emphasize those 4 words. A long, long time, because this is the exact approach that I take with my girls. And go figure, because Luke is my mentor who completely revolutionized the way I do everything. And like, literally you did. And unless you guys like appreciate that this process takes time, then you're going to keep doing these big swings and wondering why you can never see permanent results, or even see any results for that fact, because you keep wanting results yesterday. And I think a great way to summarize all of this, which touches on every single point that we've made, which I'm going to split this up into 3 different podcasts, is looking shit before you look fit. And this kind of fits into like on the fat loss side. Yeah, you might look like you have more cellulite than usual because your body is doing remodeling. And on the upper end side of things, because you're feeding your body more than usual, it's looking fuller than usual. But then again, on the dieting side, you're looking flatter than usual. So maybe you can just emphasize the whole looking shit before you're fit with the cellulite side and going down
yeah.
upwards.
Well, a couple of things. First, really quick, just to kind of tie in what we just talked about with like anabolic process, put on muscle and fellas. When you look at metabolism, you've got this coin, and on one side's catabolism and one side's anabolism. And if you look at how our systems were designed, they were designed to go through periods of feast and famine because we were hunter-gatherers. Genetically, we haven't evolved as much as our environment has. So we've gotten to the point where we want to know why we have all these age-related diseases. Well, we're living longer. We weren't technically designed to live that long without getting eaten by a fucking lion or something, or some type of disease. So we're living longer. That increases your potential of having age-related disease. We have far more stress and far more expectations of ourselves, far more pollution, far less food quality. We don't have to hunt for our food anymore. We can massively overeat. So there's a lot of things about the modern culture that our bodies, it's like trying to stick a square peg in a round hole. Like we're making it work, but it's difficult to make it work. So doesn't mean it's a good or bad thing. Like technology is good, like our environmental evolution is cool, but just understand that at the core of us, we were designed and we evolved for a specific process, which is hunter gatherers, that type of thing. So if we put ourselves into, we need to understand what those two systems, that anabolic and that catabolic system, were designed to do. The catabolic system is basically designed to get you out of danger and keep you alive. It's designed to slowly break down fuel substrates or even parts of your own body if you're starving to death. It's designed to help you get out of trouble. It's designed to ensure your survival for a long period of time. So that's why it's easier to break things down in the body. It's easier. You can do it for a long time. It's a much easier process as long as you can stay the course. So dieting inherently, from a physiological perspective, is a much easier process than anabolism. It's the mental psychological thing. I always laugh when people tell me that eating in a surplus is so much harder than dieting. If you say that, you haven't been lean enough. If you get lean enough where the side of your ass starts to look like a walnut, you take yourself to that level a couple of times, you're always going to say dieting down to that level is so much harder than bulking and eating in a surplus.
I think that the reason people say eating more is harder is because they have this psychological fear of gaining fat.
No, they eat too much. They're all eating. They're stuffing themselves full of 7,000-8,000 calories, and when that's completely unnecessary. Again, trying to rush the process. But those catabolic processes have to run quickly because they're survival pathways. Like they have to run for you to get away from an animal. You have to be able to make energy really quickly. You have to be able to trickle energy all day. You have to be able to you have to have processes to break your own body tissue down if you're starving. So just think, like, we're hunter-gatherers. We wasn't a Starbucks and a 7-Eleven on every corner. There were going to be periods of weeks where we might not find any food at all, or very, very little food. So those catabolic processes have to run all the time, and they have to be able to be variable speed, and they have to be able to break things down. When you look at anabolic processes, they're not as important as from a survival perspective. So if you think about like seasonal, think about like winter and think about summer. In the winter, you might have food scarcity. In the summer, you might have a lot more food. So in the winter time, those catabolic processes would be very important to managing body heat, to managing metabolic rate, in order to survive the course of the winter when we might have a little bit less food. In the summertime, we have ample food. That's when the anabolic process would work, but they were really only there to build back the muscle that you lost over the winter. right? So that's why when you overeat, so if you were a hunter-gatherer person on the Serengeti or whatever, in the winter time while you're hunting and gathering, you've got ample body fat stores. When those body fat stores run out, you're going to start really tapping into muscle. By the end of winter, you've lost a ton of muscle, you've lost a ton of fat. Now spring comes and you've got ample amounts of food. You're eating. You're going to put that muscle back on, but it's not like you're going to put the muscle back on plus 20 extra kilos. Like you're not going to have like hunter-gatherer dudes like making stone weights to get strong for the winter and like eating plants and thinking like, oh, there's steroids in this plant, I'm going to be the massive this winter. That was not even part of what is in our evolutionary design. So the catabolic process has to be able to break energy down, or fuel substrates and energy, or our own body, if that's what's going to keep us alive. The anabolic process is there realistically to just replace the muscle we've lost. So over the course of, say, a winter season, maybe you lost 10 kilos of muscle mass. You only need to put that back on over the summertime to get ample food, because you're going to put on a lot of body fat too. So if you're eating like it's summertime for a hunter-gatherer in that situation, of course you're going to gain a lot of fat. That's a good thing for your survival. That's why it's easy to put on fat, because that's going to carry you through a winter time where you have food scarcity. So what we have to do is we have to understand that we don't go through that seasonal pattern. We don't go through feast and famine anymore. We just go through feasting all the fucking time. And that's the problem, is that people are constantly acting like they constantly eat like they're going to go into a famine, but we don't go on a famine anymore. And then they do a program famine where they starve themselves and their hunter-gatherer thing is running on a treadmill or whatever. So if people would just dial down the extreme manner of wanting to lose weight, and definitely dial down what you do after you're done with your body recomposition, because that's one of the big things. People go back to eating all the shit that got them in trouble in the first place. So just think, so it's a weird concept. I think like we all have cavemen and cave women type of genetic things, but we're living in like an alien environment with a level of food abundance and a level of abundance of inactivity that we weren't actually designed to do. And it's probably going to be a long time until our genetic code catches up.
And that's exactly why everything we spoke about in this podcast today is your blueprint for an optimal physique. The food we eat is a lot more complex than we believe it to be, but it is actually simple in just following it. It's just that we aren't simple creatures. And the digestion process of humans isn't the same as what's extracted in a calorie bomb. And then there's the supplements, and then there's the micronutrients. And then there's how is your body in a space and time with its level of stress and sleep, and yes, stress of all inputs, and then your training status, your dieting status, it all impacts each other. So I guess this is where a coach really does come into play, but also just not doing dumb shit and jumping to extremes and taking the long road.
Yeah. And just like, and if you go to a coach, you're new to a coach, this is why we changed our policy. It's like you have to sign on for at least 6 months, especially if you're a new coach. If someone like you, who you're now training with us again, it's like, yeah, we don't put those type of contracts on. But if you're a new person we don't know anything about, we make people sign up for 6 months minimum. And the reason is it's going to take the first 2 or 3 months just to get you upskilled to the point where you can do what we need you to do, right? So, and we've got to find out what makes this person tick, and there's a lot of work. So we tell people, don't expect like us to do miracles in the first 3 months. Your results is going to come in the last 3 months. And if you're asking for really big, crazy, extreme results, this is a long-term thing. But those first couple of months is you getting used to reading your workouts, what we expect, coaching, your diet, all that stuff. And so people need to understand that when they go to a coach, try to keep things in perspective, that coach knows nothing about you. They've collected a lot of data they need to go over. They need to talk with you about stuff. They don't know how hard you train. They don't know if you know how to lift correctly. They don't know if you have good nutritional literacy. They don't know anything about your lifestyle. So please expect a good 4, 6, maybe even 8 weeks to iron all that stuff out before you expect to be seeing rapid results. Because again, this inherently is a lot of complex stuff that we will do behind the scenes that our clients don't even know we're doing. Like if my clients understood how much work we do with calculators and abacuses and spreadsheets and all this other shit, like that, me checking in on their workout every day is like, that's like such a tiny, minuscule thing that we're doing, because everything else we're doing is based on a lot of technology, our computers, our knowledge, research. We have to research stuff. You know, there's a lot of shit that goes on. So
you're not just paying for a program and a diet plan when you actually hire a coach, especially a muscle coach, because the shit that we learn under Luke is astronomical, and you've heard a lot of it here in this podcast. It's like, if you're just hoping to get a coach for a 12-week plan, or you're wanting to know if you can quit or exit out or cancel coaching after 4 months, then you're not in it for real results, because real results don't happen in 4 months.
Yeah, 100%. And a new client onboarding should always be at least 6 months. Old client onboarding, don't have to worry about that because you've already done that work. But new client onboarding with a new coach, I would always tell them, don't look at this as like a 3-4 month transformation. It needs to be a 6 month minimum, because there's going to be a couple of months where we at some point have to be able to connect. Like, how are we communicating? How are you picking up what I'm putting down? How are you applying it? And so that takes a good amount of work in weeks to get everything, all the wrinkles smoothed out, you know?
Yeah. So I guess the last summary is pretty much why there's the shit before the fit. And I guess that ties it up with a nice bow.
I like that. The shit before the fit. You need to trademark that. The shit before the fit. Yeah. But that's like the one that I came up with was the prepping to prep. Like the prepping to prep, my prepping to prep is your shit before the fit. Like, you have to understand that, like, you know, we've got this, here's the big bulk of the time of the fitness and training and all that, but then we got this little shitty period where you and I have to get on the same level with everything. So I like that shit before the fit. I like that. I wish I thought of that.
It's so true though. Like, you're always going to feel like things are worse before they get better, and this is a learning process which makes you feel worse before you feel better, especially as you become more aware of all these things that you were never aware of before. You feel like you're going backwards, but you're actually not.
And I can tell you, for a lot of especially the women listening to this, it's like, whether you've been chronically dieting or not, even though it's scary, I would say that almost 100% of the time, the first thing you should do is start increasing your calories. You know, I don't always do this. Sometimes I work out people's TDEE with all my calculations and stuff, and then I'll put them on a nutritional protocol, and then I'll see what happens after a couple of weeks. And then I've got it down to a system now where I pretty much nail it so good every time that they can stay on the same calories and barely have to tweak anything. But you know, if you're already under eating, you may consider, or if you aren't sure if you're overeating or not, you may consider just saying, hey, maybe we pump the calories up and see where we're truly overfeeding. When you see your weights consistently every 3 or 4 days, it consistently jumps up. Now you actually know that you have exceeded the amount of calories you need. That gives you a really good position of leverage. Now you know you're overeating. Before, you thought you were dieting. You may not have actually been dieting, or you may still been eating a surplus, but you don't know. It's better to raise the calories a bit, see what makes you actually gain weight, then bring it down. So I actually just used that on one of my AFL girls. She wanted to go into a recomp, and I'm like, okay, let me look at your calories. I go, and I didn't realize she's training. She's doing crazy. I've got her doing crazy contrast training, Olympic training, jumps and sprints, runs, and all this shit. Really high up stuff. She was eating like 1,200 calories, and I'm going, holy, are you really just eating 1,200? And yeah, okay. First thing we're gonna do is pump you up to 17. Pumped her up to 17. She barely, after 8 weeks, barely gained a kilo. Then I pumped her up to like 21, 2,200. Same thing. She gained like 500 grams. So we now know where that level needs to be. now I can actually bring her calories down, and she should just start shedding off the fat. But she's going to start AFL season soon, so I probably won't have to. I'll just let the AFL training become the deficit.
And this highlights the importance of taking the long road, because the faster you want your results, the longer they're going to take to come to you. And if you're not willing to deal with the shit, you'll never get the fit. And if you're not willing to do the prep, you're never going to actually be able to experience the prep, fully saying for a better word. So
look, and once you've removed, you know, I told you the other day on one of our calls, it's like there is no minimum food to give somebody. There's a minimum of nutrition. So like you've heard me say in the foundations class, you want a calorie deficit, not a nutrient deficit. So you can take that calorie deficit as low as it needs to be, but why take it lower than it needs to be? And the only way you're going to understand how you know, what's the minimal amount do I need to pull off? The only way you're going to know that is by knowing what actually makes you gain weight. So pumping the calories up, and then you can pull it down, and you can do the same thing. Like once you see your body weight stabilize, and then you start seeing yourself chipping off 100 grams, 200 grams a week, now you actually know, okay, I'm about halfway there. If I pull off another, let's say I pull off another 200 and I do like a 400 calorie diet and I stay consistent on this, I know I'm going to lose at least like 3, 4, maybe even 500 grams a week. You do that over the course of 1 year, that's 26 kilos. You know, so people need to put they need to put the perspective in long term and stop thinking so short term.
That's the perfect ending for all of this. So with all of that, I'm going to leave everything in the bottom of this podcast, as well as all 3 segments you'll be listening to with Luke, which I might actually split into 4 so that it's kind of in chapters to be your ultimate guide to everything that you need. And I highly recommend not only just following Muscle Nerds on everything and checking everything they have, but go into Google and type in Luke's name and type in podcasts after that. So you listen to all the podcasts that Luke's been on. Because honestly, all the ones, I make sure that I hear every single one that you put out as soon as it's released. Because whenever Luke speaks, there's a wealth of knowledge that comes out of his mouth. And every single part of it is something that can help you in some way or form, especially if you have blood pressure issues. There's one that he's put out on that. So honestly, do it. Go into Google, type it in, and you realize that this isn't just about a body you're trying to achieve, but an ultimate status of health and physique. So with that, do you have any other lasting words?
That's it. And yeah, I got a call starting, so I got to go. But this has been fun. This has been great. I like this. This is really good.
Bye.
See you guys.